It is December 3rd. We are here in beautiful Ayer Town Hall. This is a special meeting called and noticed simply for the purpose of discussing the pond study that was done for us. And so I would still like us all to join in a pledge of allegiance to the nation's flag before the whole. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There was a typo. There was 12 p.m. meeting. It was listed as 12 p.m. the meeting today. Where? On the town website. 12 p.m.
Hold on.
Typo.
Let me go look and see what's posted on the.
Because when Jeff picked me up at the
But
train,
the
he said, "We don't have a meeting."
website's not official though.
This is not official.
No, as far as public notices, it's
Oh,
a
okay.
convenience, but it's
Okay.
not official. So,
Okay, because I was arguing. I had an argument with my husband. That,
did you win?
yeah, because I'm like, see, Jess just texted me. We have a meeting. Jess.
They don't post it inside and outside, just outside?
It's out. It is outside.
But it did say 12 p.m. on the website.
Was it on the agenda
It's a
itself?
little confusing.
Copy of the agenda.
Yeah, because planning board got canceled.
That would have been distressing. We are legally posted, December 3rd meeting, 7 p.m. outside on the
Okay.
kiosk.
All right, good.
So for anyone with questions, we are legally posted.
Okay.
I should put that in the minutes then.
Who, Sam Hill. The chair would roll. Who would do that? Was that Cindy who actually puts them on the website? Or what?
Was it on the website? What form was it on the website? We can find this out.
On the calendar itself?
Yeah, on the calendar itself, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
'Cause it's,
So it wasn't like a copy of our agenda itself?
No, it's
Oh.
on the town calendar, I think, because planning board was canceled, 6 p.m. meeting was canceled.
Yep.
We were at 12 p.m. and there was something before us at, in the morning.
It was funny when they sent the email out that the planning board was canceled. I just said, I saw it as, oh, the conservation meeting's canceled. And I canceled, and then I canceled it off my calendar. Then I read it again. Whoop!
So today is has this at 12 p.m. Interesting. I don't know who does the calendar, if that's what office does that.
Hmm.
Must be
It
an
would-
IT problem.
What?
IT problem.
Well, if it was me, I would guess it was town clerk, but what do I know?
Where, but a town clerk doesn't do, well, okay. Posted.
Something that we should probably pay attention to, and also, we are listed correctly for next week, so
Yeah,
there's that.
well, human error does exist.
Oh, all right, especially in the officiating corps.
That's why half of us still have our jobs.
That's right. And why the other half don't. All right. So I am embarrassed to say I don't have my packet with me, but so George would like to remind me gracelessly where we left off.
I have no idea.
Page
There we
90, page 98. Don't that speed up this meeting, George.
There we go. Page 98. That seems
Say number 9, Mountain View Avenue.
a little fast.
We left off at water quality, right?
That's the spirit.
I'm just trying to find my minutes.
Could I just add a couple more things? I'm sorry, we left off at water quality, but I have
Oh.
a couple additional questions. And this, I'll be really fast. One question is, with the TSA scores that these, that GeoCentech used, have we underestimated
GSA scores,
TSI,
TSA.
sorry, TSI.
which stands for,
Total, oh, hold on. Hold on.
Trophic
Yeah,
status
trophic
index.
Ooh.
status index. And the reason why I asked that, because I looked up what the EPA sort of recommends. And according to the EPA, the Carlson Index should only be used with lakes that have relatively few rooted plants and non-algal turbidity sources. So my question is, why did Geosyntec use the Carlson
could you say that
trophic
again?
status?
With-
According to the EPA,
Yeah.
the Carlson Index, so the TSI index should only be used with lakes that have, or ponds, that have relatively few rooted plants and non-algal turbidity sources.
And now what?
No, non-algal, so A-L-G-A-L, algae,
Oh.
non-algae, turbidity sources. And the question is, why did Geosyntec use this method of measuring the trophic status of the ponds? There are many other methods that, one could use.
And that chart is on page 15 if you, assume that, right?
Right, yep, yep.
Well, so what's interesting is that the very first website that comes up when you try and find this states right off the bat, Trophic State Index. Eutrophication is the process by which lakes are enriched with nutrients, increasing the production of rooted aquatic plants and algae. The extent to which this process has occurred is reflected in a lake's trophic classification or state. Says that trophic state indices, TSIs, are an attempt to provide a single quantitative index for the purpose of classifying and ranking lakes, most often from the standpoint of assessing water quality. In recent years, the Carlson 1977 index appears to have attained general acceptance in this limnological community as a reasonable approach to this problem. So maybe the reason they used it is that that's what the people who do this do.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's right
Okay,
or wrong, I'm
right.
just simply saying this particular lake access, lake
So-
access on Impact Metro project.
And the other little piece of evidence is that at the end of page 14, I have page 15 on mine, is that they say that, so Geosyntec claims that one of the limitations of the TSI score is that it uses algal biomass as measured indirectly through chlorophyll A and water clarity as the basis for determining biological productivity. And the abundance of macrophytes, that's vascular aquatic plants, which we all know they're very abundant in all of our ponds, is not considered. If a pond is heavily dominated by macrophytes rather than microscopic plant algae, the Carlson TSI score may underestimate trophic status. So that's why I'm asking, have we underestimated the trophic status of our ponds because we've used this way of determining?
What
Well-
other tools are available to do the same thing or similar thing, do you know? That they could have used as an
Yeah, I haven't
alternative?
researched that. There is one, I have it written down somewhere.
Well, it's very interesting that you were focusing on this because so this website, lakeaccess.org, that talks about this is from Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
So, they've got a handle on the lakes
the
there
lake-
now,
yeah,
huh?
the lake issue.
And they go right from CG disc and this TSI measurement. They go right from there to taking phosphorus, logging total phosphorus versus log of total phosphorus versus log of chlorophyll A scatter plot. And so this is what they're doing to take their information and graph it. So I guess the real question is, so the first fun part about all this was learning that there were all these things to measure lakes in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Then the next part is to take, like you're saying, so is this giving us a real representation? My guess is that at the end of the day, one of the things that we were talking about is how do we gather information such that we can use it to say this is working or it's not working?
Right.
What is it that we're gathering? And so the question, one of the big questions was obviously, what is it going to take to gather, take these samples? What's that going to cost? Can we find a way to do it, more efficiently and less expensively? And how do we do it so we get the most amount of data we can possibly gather? So we can stand back and say, hey, we just spent all this money and man, it worked great. Or hey, we just spent all this money and oh, holy crud, we've got to do something about whatever is getting in the ponds because it's not enough. So what is that? What are those measurements? What are those data points that we're going to collect? So I don't know if you remember, and if I recall correctly, the TSI was really kind of a static measurement, right? Didn't he use the TSI to see whether you were oligotropic or eutropic, right? And then there were ranges,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So he said, hey, you are here.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know that you would actually say to yourself, oh, I guess we should treat the weeds more next year because we were oligotropic this year.
I know.
Or if you would say to yourself, we're having an issue, but it's okay because our pond happens to be 64.5 this year. So
Right. I think these ranges are more sort of geared for deeper lakes and ponds, like Sandy Pond. Not for Flanagan, obviously not for Grove, not for.
These are the
for Black.
ranges and what page?
So on page 13, is it 13?
Where you are with the color, that's
Is it
that's
on
four,
the one
that's
behind,
that's
right?
14 on where you are.
That's 14?
That's 14.
Okay,
Yeah.
page 14. It's the range, it's figure 1.3.
yep.
These ranges, right, what Bill was basically mentioning sort of is, I think, more appropriate for, the deeper ponds and lakes and not for, the shallow ponds like Flanagan and Pine Meadow.
Well, so I don't have any issue with what you're taking issue with. I guess my feeling is that at this point, these trophic status assessments are I guess good to know.
Yeah.
But again, it's really not going to be it's not going to be, don't get me wrong, according to this on table 1.3, it comes right out and it says that, Flanagan Pond is 64.5. And so interestingly, there's that exact same table that we were just looking at on page 14 on the Minnesota one. So this says Pine Meadow is 46.5, moderately clear water. Flanagan is 64.5, blue-green algae dominance, scums possible, extensive macrophyte problems. Okay, and then everything else is in the 40s and 50s. Balch is 53.2, mildly eutropic, decreased transparency, anoxic hypoluminon, macrophyte problems, warm water fisheries only, supportive of all swimmable aesthetic uses, but threatened. So if I follow these numbers, they do at least align with what you would expect. 40 to 50, which is where most of our ponds are, moderately clear water, increasing chance of hypolimnetic anoxia in summer, fully supportive of all swimmable aesthetic uses. Okay, so that's swell, but that doesn't say. I have a 46.1 score at Sandy Pond, but I don't know what that tells me to do with all that silly bladderwort and all the stuff that we're trying to deal with in the ponds, all the weeds that we're trying to control. So I'm excited about our trophic status, but I'm not sure that it gives us any kind of determination on what to do next.
Right.
It's kind of a benchmark, this is where we are today, so as we go forward,
Yeah.
are we getting better or worse?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which of course then brings up the next question. Can you make it any better? Which I think is actually more to the point of what Bonnie's talking about, because if Flanagan Pond is 64.5 and is a shallow pond, then maybe 64.5 is as good as it gets.
how do you make it right? How do you continue to make it better? I mean, you can pull all the weeds. So if you know
Dredging.
from the past, you treated it, it obviously comes back. All the weeds come back
Right.
year after year, right? So if you can't reduce the phosphorus load on the ponds,
Well, if you can't reduce the phosphorus load and you also can't change the fact that the bottom is
Is
perfect soil
dense.
for growing all this stuff,
right?
then those are just factors.
Yeah.
Right, but
Well-
then that gets to the point of, do you maintain it so that it doesn't grow worse? Because if
Sure.
you're in
Yeah.
a state of
Yeah.
eutrophication, you're gonna continue, it's
Right.
like a big compost heap.
Yeah,
Right.
So
yeah.
how do you, what can you do to curtail
Right.
the additional biomass year after year after year? So you're not necessarily, we'll never make it sandy pond, we'll never make it clear water, and I don't think that's anyone's,
Goal.
And
Right.
Sandy Pond isn't clear water.
No, but, no, but
It's clearer,
Right.
it's not clear water.
Well, my point being, we can't simply say we don't want to curtail any remediation of the pond because it's just going to continue.
Oh, no, and that's not my direction.
Right,
All
I
I'm
understand.
simply saying is that, as we started to get into this, right, so we have a fairly substantial amount of information to look at and figure out and say, what does it mean? And then at the end of that, it's kind of like, if you forgive the it's like reading the Bible. Okay, so I've read through it. Now, what the hell did I do with it?
And everybody's
Right?
definition is different.
And there's going to be a whole lot of different directions that everyone's going to come from. This to me is the same thing. They've given us a lot of information. They have given us specific examples of places where we can reduce phosphorus loading by changing the way that the ponds get stormwater, et cetera, and that's fantastic. The place where I don't think any of us are happy is, what's the treatment regimen? The treatment regimen that they describe doesn't give me anything scientific to go off of. It still stays right up in the subjective category. It doesn't
Right.
say, measure the chlorophyll A this year, and you should be around here. If chlorophyll A starts to increase, then you should think about more treatment. That's advice I can go into town meeting and say, put a big chart up on the wall and say, look, the experts told us that it needs to be here and it's over here, so this is what we need to do, and this is what the treatment is. Great. Instead, what I have is, look and watch and see. I can do that, but that's not the kind of thing that I want to
Yeah.
bring to town meeting.
Yeah.
That's
I
not
mean,
the kind of thing I want to ask people for money for.
Yeah, I think based on this whole package, it's sort of based on total this is my interpretation, based on total phosphorus loads to all the ponds. And if you keep the phosphorus load at a certain level, then you can kind of manage it year after year after year. But if the phosphorus load gets away from you and starts, increasing year after year, those ponds are slowly going to become more eutrophic, right? And then turn into, especially Flanagan's, which is very shallow, and Grove, which is very shallow, it will slowly become, it'll kind of settle in and slowly become more marsh, and obviously turn into, someone's backyard pretty soon. Somebody will,
The great
Building
giant
houses on
swamp
Flanagan's soon.
breeding West Nile virus and all sorts of other things.
Only if we're lucky. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, where was I going with this? The phosphorus load. If we look at what we don't have, I don't believe, is a historical benchmark of what the phosphorus load has been
Right.
over time.
right,
Nope.
So this is like our first step in the ground.
yeah,
But I know anecdotally, former members of conservation, back in the day, before we had town sewage, the hope was that this problem with phosphorus in leach fields and detergents and all this stuff
Yeah.
would be alleviated once everybody went on town sewer. Now everyone is on town sewer. Everyone has been on town sewer for a decade or two or three,
yeah,
and we're still seeing the same problems on the pond. So though I don't have figures to quantify it, what would have been obvious sources of phosphorus from leach fields of all the abutters,
Right.
that problem has gone away. That source has gone
Yeah.
away. So
Or at least it's mitigated.
yeah.
I'm assuming that there is even though the production is gone,
There's a
still,
residual.
there's still a residual effect, I'm sure.
But you
Yeah.
know, the,
Couldn't tell you how long it takes or.
Yeah.
like the log cabin on the corner of Calvin and Snake Hill
Right.
just went on to town sewer.
But that was the last holdout.
That was
on
the
that-
last
On
one.
all of that
Yeah.
loop from Calvin all the way to
Yeah.
Oak Ridge.
How are they allowed to? How does that work?
They were grandfathered in.
Yeah, but in selling it, they had to.
They had
Yeah,
to.
they had to,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Nobody
Interesting.
really was living there and probably using the,
Yeah.
the septic, so.
I think so.
But my point being, if we don't understand what the volume of phosphorus was historically, this is our first chance to measure it. If we measure it annually,
Yeah.
we can begin to see if it's constant,
Mhm.
and I suspect we'll probably find it's relatively constant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, we have discussed what the potential threat is of people using fertilizers or whatever. I have no idea what people are using for lawn fertilizers. I have no idea. I suspect there are safe fertilizers that you could use that
Sure.
that would, and that'd be environmental friendly. And I would imagine if I were, and I'm just hypothesizing here, but if I were a landscaper, I would definitely be pitching that as the eco-friendly solution, which.
Oddly more expensive, but eco-friendly.
No, but that's people buy Priuses, so you people willing to pay for things that they value. So if we look at this, just at least that's our first benchmark for phosphorus. How is the phosphorus load going to impact the vegetation over time? There are more issues here than just the phosphorus as far as vegetation. Propagation of various plants, invasive species, etc., isn't totally dependent upon the phosphorus load.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so there's a couple factors. So the first one is, for instance, measuring what's going in and what's happened, and then measuring, so let's say that we have a treatment. Okay, well that knocks back the amount of plants. The less plants, the less plant material that sinks to the bottom, the less food there is for the next batch of plants to grow. So how do you stay on top of that cycle as well?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I guess I was looking for a how-to clinic in this report, and I don't feel like we got that. I don't know if that's oversimplification, but I really expected paint by number.
Yeah,
Do this,
and
then do
yeah.
that, measure here, repeat.
But I think the problem is every pond is, its own entity, right? Every pond is like an individual, has its own personality, its own, kind of way of doing things, right? So not all treatments are gonna basically result in, I think, a unified, similar result on all ponds. Like, for example, like in Harvard, they've decided to take the tact of reducing their water level by 8, I think, to 10 feet every year, right? To basically freeze off, those plants that are sort of near the surface and that rely on sunlight to grow. That's one alternative that they've taken, and they claim that it's been working.
We don't have 8 feet.
But we
half
don't
the
have
ponds.
these.
Well, have you ever driven down there?
8 feet.
Have you ever driven down to Bear Hill, to Bear
No,
Pond?
No.
So if you go down there in the winter, and the boys and I will sometimes go down there just if for no other reason than there's all sorts of cool tracks then frozen in the mud.
Yep.
And so we've been down there and yeah, you can see way out, it's dirt. It's the bottom, it's the bed of the pond for
Yeah.
a great distance out till you finally hit water.
Yeah,
Now, they also they're a place where they can do that.
yeah.
Right? We have everything
Yeah.
that runs in a long pond, runs through Sandy Pond. Probably the only one you could really, close off and drain out would be Long Pond. After that, everybody else is getting water fed from another pond.
Right.
Right.
And even if you pulled every board out of the dam,
Right.
you're only dropping 3 feet
Right.
at the
Well,
most.
At the most, yeah.
And that's the other part of it.
Yeah.
Don't they run pumps to do that?
Yep, they have a huge pump system. to
Yeah, that's
pump it
not
out.
free or easy.
That was expensive for them.
I bet it
to
was.
take that on.
So, and then you have to, I'm assuming you'd have to dam it up, right? You have to dam
Yep.
all your point sources.
Yep.
So what happens behind it,
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
responsible for the backups and how it affects property owners behind you.
Right.
right?
Right.
So what happens if I drain Flanagan's, so now all of a sudden we put a dam at Snake Hill Road, block it off, pump out Flanagan's Pond. We would need to have a bypass for Sandy.
The other thing you have with ponds like Flanagan that you wouldn't have with a kettle pond, you don't, with a kettle, you just drop the level. With Flanagan's Pond, you get, or any shallow meadow, if you drained it, you would have an incredible fish kill, I would imagine,
Exactly.
because there's no place for them to seek the bottom.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work
Right.
for Flanagan, right? So you have to sort of come up with a different solution.
Yeah.
Unless you pumped out Flanagan and Sandy at the same time so that they could swim backwards to Sandy Pond. What? I'm not joking.
We can put a sign up, this is.
This way, this way. Yeah.
Put a little fish
Yeah.
ladder? Put a little fish
Yeah.
ladder in there.
Well, I guess, so unfortunately, we're probably not in a position to do that.
Right.
As exciting as it would
That was
be.
just an example. That was just
No,
an
sure.
example.
So we're back to that same point, which is, okay, what are the tools available to us? We can use these herbicides to control the vegetation, and we can control the inputs of phosphorus, and then that's about it.
And then see what happens, right?
And after that, the only question is, okay, so then how do I measure progress, and how do I measure if we've done a good job, and at what point do we say, you know what, we don't need to do a treatment this year, everything's going along just great.
Yep.
You know, or maybe a spot treatment or something to that effect, or, you know, hey, these have been really, we have found ways to control the way that we're loading the pond, and let's stick with what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, I feel like, to me, the most important thing to come out of this is, how do we do the testing? I know I keep harping on that, but how do we do the testing?
I think the testing is easy. The testing is easy.
Well,
That's an easy thing.
When you
The
say
testing-
testing, you talk about water quality, you're talking about weed management.
Water quality.
And what are you
Water-
talking,
that's-
Bonnie? You'd have water quality.
That's an easy thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you
But-
get a bunch of volunteers.
Sure.
You get
Take
someone who's
samples.
lead- Yeah.
You go
3 times
somewhere
a
to get
year.
it tested.
Yep,
How many times?
3 times a year.
3. I was
Yeah.
thinking like 300. How do
300
we do
times a
that?
year?
Absolutely.
300 times a year.
Absolutely. How do we
Why?
set it up so that we can do that? How do we set it up so that the testing, the water department, every single day, tests the water that comes out of the well?
Are they
Every single day,
Yeah.
by law.
Are they willing to take on?
Well, that's one of the other
pond
things that we've
samples?
got to figure out. But I don't know that the testing procedure is all that much different than what they do or what they have. So that's got to be one of the,
One of the issues though is, where do we do the tests? Because I think DPW can just go in and
Right.
scoop it.
sure,
We would need
Here
to
it
have a
needs
specific
clean spots.
location.
they got tested every single
And
time.
So,
We'll sell these
yes.
lobster boys out of Flanagan Pond.
I mean, I would be willing to test, Flanagan's. So somebody goes out in their kayak with their dipstick.
With a
and-
town seal on the side of it.
It does, yeah. Right, and you, I mean,
Well, I'd like to
it's-
see the testing done at inputs.
Yeah,
I think that's the smartest, best place to do it, right? In the middle, you run the risk of a stagnant test. So you've got where water comes in from Long Pond, you do a test there.
Yeah.
What you could do from the shore, if you got Franny Callahan to let you walk across his lawn,
yep,
you could do the same thing at the bridge. You could do your test
Right.
drop right at the bridge at
Right.
Snake Hill. You could do the test drop right at Central Ave.
yeah,
So,
yep.
So that would be a question, is instead of having Geosyntec recommend an ideal testing program going out in the middle to this
Mm.
GPS point,
Mm.
what would be a functional testing regime based on, not having to have, not being dependent on people going out in boats, but how we
Right, right.
could we get a comparable picture
right.
Yeah.
if it was consistent over the years?
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
Would be-
I would question, and I understand from the ease, but I would question if you were standing on the causeway on Snake Hill Road taking a reading at Flanagan Pond, that's really going to be Sandy Pond water you're measuring.
Oh, no, exactly. So that's why you measure where it comes out of Long Pond, you measure where it comes out of Sandy Pond, you measure where it comes out of Flanagan's Pond. And then that, if nothing else, also gives you a flow pattern. You
Yeah.
say, hey,
Yeah,
we're seeing this over here, this over here, this over here. It helps you to measure inputs. So then if all of a sudden you make a change on Mountain View, one of the dirtiest streets in town, so you make a change on Mountain View, and all of a sudden you see a big difference between the end of Sandy Pond and the big end of Flanagan's Pond. You say, holy smokes, that was great. Or all of a sudden, you're watching the water that goes into the pond, and you're like, Fred's company's been doing a whole big fertilizer program, and all of a sudden we're seeing a lot more loading into the pond.
Yeah.
It at least gives us the opportunity to see real-time results of this is what happens before it enters, this is what happens when it leaves, this is what happens when it enters, this is what happens when it leaves. Taking a test in the middle is fantastic for some of these things, but I can't help but think that the most important thing is to see, okay, well, what happened and what contributions came from this area and
Yeah.
this area.
Right.
It is real time.
Right,
And
understand.
and it is easy. That's an easy thing to do. It's test from the the bank.
So-
Flanagan's, you got 2 or 3 points where the water's coming in though, so that's different than Long Pond to Sandy Pond, et cetera.
But you could do the same thing where it comes from Pine Meadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could, I mean, I think one of the things would be to just have something that we could maintain over
Right.
time,
Right.
instead of starting to drop the ball
And
because nobody can get out.
I'm not arguing, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make sure that we're addressing all the contingencies regarding where we be setting these measurement points.
Well, and so I also don't want to get ahead. George, you had something.
Well, to that point is, I think you also have to measure off to the side where the weeds are growing. Because I know in Wachusett Reservoir, there's a channel that runs through it like the Gulf Stream from the inlet to the outlet. So, you could have that same effect on the ponds where it's not coming in and totally dispersing.
Sure, sure. I guess I like the idea of gathering that information as well. I guess there's just a part of me that just says, okay, what is this pond doing and what is it contributing?
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives you the ability, if nothing else, to measure the macro change, which feels like the smartest place to start, right? We've got to build up this database that allows us to stand back and say, okay, well, this is what it does over the year. Okay,
Yeah.
well, some of
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that compare to other ponds? And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, this pond does this and this pond does this. Holy crap,
Yeah.
what's going on?
But
Yeah.
to George's point, Flanagan's is a stream under there, so there is deeper water
Yeah.
in some spots and it's moving water.
Right.
As opposed to, I'm on the Sandy Pond side,
Mhm.
and it's, the wider parts, like you said,
Right.
are, I won't use the word stagnant, but they're still, relatively speaking, and they definitely are prone to, a lot of infestation with the weeds.
Right.
But you are not going to see the dynamic changeover of the water that you see in rain season, stuff like that, you will, but not, as you get into the summer months, you definitely don't see that much of it.
Yeah.
Right, and still not even to the extent that
Right.
you're going to get some movement of the water. That's true, but nothing like you're going to in that channel.
Yeah.
There's a pond that we love to go, Hertz Pond over in Wayland. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but that's no joke. There's no pun intended. Actually, no pun intended. So Hertz Pond is fed on the Wayland side and goes through, and there was an old train rail ran through the middle of it, and one of the best places to fish for pickerel, just unbelievable. But the point of it is that you can see on the side of it it's literally scoured where the water travels through, and so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You can actually see that path. But yeah, it's true. Every pond, every reservoir has the path that the water generally takes. In our case, it's pretty simple. It goes under a bridge, so not going to be a whole lot of choice there. So
Yep.
you are absolutely, if a drop of water lands over there and it's going to find its way through, it's going to come through at this bridge, that's the place to take the measurement, in my mind, to give yourself a quick, easy way to build up the data and know for a fact that George took it on Wednesday and it hadn't rained for 2 weeks, and so that water in that area hadn't really moved very much. That is a good data point to have, but it's not. I don't think it's as important as building up a data point that says this is what the pond does during the year.
Yeah, if you could track it with weather conditions, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to go out, literally love to go out and do it every single day, if for no other reason than it gives you the ability to put that together and then say,
Yeah.
wow, so this is what our pond does.
Yeah, but I still think it's important to test sort of within the interior of each pond, visibility, how far can you
Oh,
see down,
absolutely.
right? Maybe nitrogen levels. And I think also plant biomass, because you sort of want to know year to year to year how much increase in plant biomass.
Well, the other thing too, if you look at Flanagan Pond, you drop in the summer, you drop 12 inches. That doesn't sound Sandy Pond, that's irrelevant.
Right.
For Flanagan Pond, that's a substantial percentage of the water, particularly for a lot of the outlying areas.
Right.
And all that biomass now is right there in the sun,
Yep,
and it just takes off.
right.
So water levels and the temperature, that'd be another point to be curious, you know, temperature. And of course, some of the stuff you may just be able to grab historically off of a weather website or something, you know, to track all that stuff to add in. But if you looked at the temperature, the precipitation, as well as these readings, it'd be fascinating to see how the weather is playing upon it.
Yeah.
And again, rainfall in the spring versus rainfall in August for the ponds that are already low. It's amazing how that water changes.
Sure.
You're talking about going from 3 feet deep to 2 feet deep. And that's what it looks like when you walk across it.
I would think we could
Yeah.
develop, put in some level indicators for each pond, and also, if we even just started like a first year or two doing monthly measurements or weekly, if you really wanted to get, but also, and then have a consistent, a fixed point in each pond for levels. We could easily tell, first day of the month, somebody goes out, what's the water level?
Sure. Well, and again, that's why it's nice to have the bridges. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I'm not trying to make too much of it, but look,
Yeah.
you can either use the big concrete thing that's already there to
Yeah.
put measuring,
Yeah.
put a measuring stick on, or you can go put one in yourself. But
Right.
Yeah.
it's just it's simpler, it's easier, and we have the benefit. Remember when the culvert pipe got jammed up under Central Ave?
Mhm.
The fire department went in and cleaned it out, right?
Yeah.
So as long as those continue to be important parts, they're going to be monitored and taken care of. We don't have to worry about a beaver dam messing up our measurements every year. Which is a real potential, right? If you were trying to take careful measurements of Pine Meadow Pond, it just depends on how industrious the guys are this year.
Yeah.
Three dens up there, what do you call, what's the official term for a beaver hutch?
Lodge.
Lodge.
Lodge, thank you, lodge. 3 lodges, I counted.
That's
I
awesome.
went in there with my kayak, because I was curious. 3 of them in that little.
Oh, they kick the kids out early, so
Did
those
they?
are actually
Where do the
condos.
kids go? Where do they go?
Which are those condos?
They go down to our pond?
They're supposed to leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah, but how do they get?
But they come back.
Another
They
place.
come back and live in the basement.
I couldn't find a pond. Got a bunch of bark loans. I don't know what to do.
I promise I'll help build that dam.
I'm not just going to sleep in my room. Anyway, so to me it feels like I'm excited to keep reading through the report, but one of the things that we were talking about the other night, and I think it seems like the most important point to identify is, what are we trying to get? The whole idea was that they would give us an overall view of the ponds and things that we could do. And they truly did hit the mark in a bunch of places, like giving us some advice on ways to treat the water inputs into the ponds. I think those are great. I don't think the budget numbers are as good as they could be, but at the same time, a budget number published in the spring of 2015 is useless in the spring of 2016 anyway. So, it's ballpark, but as far as, what to do, and, you should be testing under this regimen, and by the way, these are the, this is what you're trying to trend toward, and these are the results you should be looking for. I don't feel like we're there, unless somebody read a different report than I read. I don't think there's a, you should be doing testing, and as you go along, your chlorophyll A should be falling in that pond from 64.5 down to probably 55. We recommend that, you'd see a drop of this per year. The way to accomplish it is by reducing this, that, the other thing. There's not a scientific method or basis that allows us to say, okay, we have now made the pond more healthy. And some of that points to the subjective. What's a healthy pond? Maybe somebody wants a pond that's covered in lilies, and other people want a pond that they can, see most of the bottom. But if we agree that what we're attempting to do is to make ponds that are swimmable and usable for recreation, then somebody needs to point us in the direction of what we should expect to find, what kind of results we should expect to have, what kind of trending we should expect to be looking for. Is that oversimplification.
Say those three again.
So, you know I do these things off the cuff. So it feels like, what I would be looking for is some kind of data that shows us what we should have and where we should be trending. For instance, with chlorophyll and phosphorus, as we take measurements,
Yeah.
right? Where we are, where we're trying to be. And probably a big important part is what expectation should we have? You know, what's our likely reduction per year? Now, that's again one of the great places, the phosphorus information. Do you need paper? I see you scribbling in little corners there. The phosphorus information is pretty great. You know,
Yeah.
put in a berm up here, reduce the way that the water gets down, reduce the impact of the flow. That's all fantastic.
I mean, if you want sort of a trend or a place to be, you know, maybe we set some cutoff numbers, like we want to be in more of the mesotrophic sort of state, right? Around 20, well, this is 12 to 24, but we want to be around 25 total phosphorus. That's
For specific ponds, I mean,
yeah,
that might not be a realistic one for Flanagan, given it.
but for Sandy,
But for
I think that's
Sandy or
realistic.
Long Pond. it's-
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so do we feel comfortable? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure. Do we feel comfortable that one of the points we want to take back to these folks at Geosyntec is that we are looking for recommendations? That's a big thing that we feel we're missing. Recommendations on, for instance, phosphorus, chlorophyll, and what was the third? Transparency, right? And transparency. Does it seem fair to say that we are looking for levels that we should be trying to attain and what we should expect for results on an annual basis?
Or try, yeah.
What are the ways to get there?
I mean, and can they be specific for each pond
Yeah.
that we're trying to?
I agree with everything that we're talking about, but I think, in my opinion, the way to do that, the way to approach it with Geosyntec or whoever's going to be providing these recommendations is I think we need to, for each pond, tell them this is what we want this pond to look like forever, or we wanted to get it. We want to get it to this point and then keep it at this point forever. So we need to say for Sandy Pond we want to keep it clean and swimmable as a relatively deep, great pond with a beach. For Flanagan Pond, we want to keep it passable in a kayak, most of the year. I mean, we have to figure out what it is we want.
No, that's a very
I
good
don't
point.
think, if I were the consultant and you handed me that list that you're putting together, I would say, well, what do you want? I mean,
Well, and so
what are your goals, I guess, for each pond?
And I
So
think you're right.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is, what do we do with these things to get to where we want to be? And oh, by the way, here's where we want to be.
We need to decide where we want to be, I think.
And not to mention the fact, it would be pretty responsible on their side if we went into them and we said, hey, you know what, Grove Pond, that's the kind of place we were hoping would be somewhere in the 30 to 40 oligotropic, clear water. And they said, sure, are you planning to move Grove Pond down to the tropics? Because that's about the only place that's going to happen. Are you planning to do dump Grove Pond in the Atlantic Ocean
Right.
outside of Bermuda? Because you nailed it. But yeah, there should be. That seems like a great place to go.
Because I don't think we should really. So I don't know enough about all these nuances of the different numbers to focus in on them.
Well, you
But
have chlorophyll A tattooed on your arm and phosphorus on the other. So
Actually, I left my cat tattooed on my arm because my daughter had the same one. It was a temporary tattoo. But it's wearing off now, so the evidence is gone.
been wearing long sleeves.
Yes, not rolling them up. And so we could get lost in these numbers for or any one of these different numbers
Yeah.
forever, and then not find our way out. But I think the more important thing is to decide what we want for each pond to look like. What kind of resource do we want each pond to be, and then the consultant can then say, okay, well, if that's your goal for Grove Pond, then we recommend these things, and, you could expect your TSI to be in this range or that range, that kind of thing. I don't feel like we should be the ones focusing in too much on these numbers and using that to drive.
And I think collecting the numbers and developing a statistical history has a lot of merit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with all that. Yeah.
But for us to say our goal is to get Sandy Pond from 46.1 down to 37.2, it's like, what the heck does that mean?
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I certainly.
I'm secretly writing that number down.
Yes,
But I think our
to
goal
see them trending over the next 10 years, trending.
or staying the same if
Right.
it's a case where
Right.
it's a pond that is sort of what we want it to
Yeah.
be.
And then the other
yeah.
question, seriously, is these numbers, just how much influence are they having upon the ponds in regards to vegetation
Right.
and recreation,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Right.
They could be having little or no impact, and I'm just
Yeah.
No,
we
and
don't know.
that's,
So my point is, if we focus too much on a statistical analysis, we don't get into something that's pragmatic and,
Right.
and beneficial to us as users of the pond. So I see this as a two-pronged approach. One is, yes, let's start collecting data and measuring and getting
Right.
all that history. That also affords us the opportunity to track, if you're looking at the TSI indices there, if we were looking at educational things over the course of 5 or 10 years regarding, washing your car in the driveway and, fertilizers and gardening, etc., and eco-friendly things, are we beginning to see those trends improving? So we're not exacerbating the problem with weeds.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the fact is, it's like your lawn, once you leave the dandelions alone for a year, you're screwed. I mean,
Well, you're not screwed, but you do every day, yanking them out.
yeah. So
depends on how much you like to eat dandelions. I think we're on the same page. I guess the reason I see this as the beginning, is this is the way that you quantify what the results are, right? And I think it has to be a big part of, up to this point, the only way that we've made any kind of determination was literally standing on the shore and saying, wow, those weeds really came in this year. Okay, so maybe next year we're able to say, wow, the weeds really came in this year. Oh, that makes sense based on what we were trending for what we saw in these quantities. Okay, and so next year we did a treatment and this is what we saw in those quantities. And so 5 years from now, we see the quantities start to rise and we say, oh, we better plan on treating the weeds next year because look what's happening, it's coming back. And that's the idea, is to have a scientific, not seat of the pants method of saying, this is look at the numbers. We know we're going to need a treatment
right.
next year.
My only point, Bill, is that the numbers that we're talking about here don't necessarily have anything to do with weather and all that other stuff.
Right.
Absolutely.
So those are other factors.
No. Absolutely. So taken at face value, the TSI means buckus. The elements
they
of the
even say
TSI,
that.
right?
They basically
The
say that.
elements of the TSI are what matter.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to establish,
Right,
right? So
right.
how does chlorophyll affect those factors? How does phosphorus affect it? If we see those increasing over time, is there something we can do differently? Is it something that after a treatment they drop off? Great. Those are the predictors, the indices that you use to say to yourself, okay, that's wonderful. And then we can sit around and have a party about holotropic and eutropic and everything else, but it doesn't mean anything as far as helping us say, hey, what we're doing for the pond is going in the right direction, or holy smoke, something is desperately wrong here. It's going entirely in the wrong direction. Maybe there's another input we should be looking for here.
Well, from a measurements perspective, I'm not trying to belabor it. I'm just trying to think out loud here. If we were looking at a phosphorus number as an example, and we treated the ponds this summer, are those weeds that are dying off, are they releasing any of these same things back into the water
Won't it be
and affecting the numbers?
Won't it be so cool to find out?
Well, I understand, but my point is that would kind of help us address sourcing issues of
Sure.
and it's not That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means we need to be aware of it and understand what its impact is gonna be.
Right, and then by measuring it and we see it drop off and we say, okay, so the vegetation has died off, it's collected, it's gone away, this is the result we're seeing now, and we have a couple good years and we see how it works. And then that way we don't, because one of the problems with the cycle that we're in right now is you can say, we need to treat the ponds this year. I don't know if we need to treat the ponds this year. I can only assume based on what I saw last year. And sometimes we have the right weather circumstances and all of a sudden this year just blows out of control. Well, hopefully this gives us the ability to say, we're seeing the numbers start to climb up. We should prepare for a treatment next year. Something to that effect. That's what I'm shooting for. And that leads us into the second part, which we did with these guys and is far more difficult than what we're talking about here. We said, you need to go around and use a GPS. When we did our last treatment, you need to go around with a GPS and map out the extent of the weeds today, and then map out the extent of the weeds after treatment. That is not quite as simple. It can be done by somebody in a kayak, but it's going to be done by someone competent. And
It takes a long time.
Right.
and it does
A
take a
day,
long time.
it's a full day.
It's a day to do
Couple
a
days.
pond if you do it right. It takes a while, especially Flanagan's. Flanagan's has an amazing amount of shoreline because of the way that it's laid out.
Yep.
That's the next method of telling us whether whether we're knocking the vegetation back or not. And it doesn't do a great job on a shallow pond like Flanagan's. Doesn't do a great job of addressing all the weeds that are in the middle. Right?
Yeah.
Because if I go in Sandy, I can go right around the outside edge, and
Yeah,
I could
that's easy.
kayak around Sandy in the morning, nail all the outside edge points, do a pretty good job, and even be able to probably say, well, there's a whole section of pickerel weed. There's nothing over there that you need to be worried about on the west. So south. There's nothing you need to be worried about over on that south side. It's all pickerel weed all along the road.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And on the other side, it's the same thing. It's all pickerel weed over in there. There's none of the other weeds that we've been fighting that are on the end where Long Pond comes in. That's where it's a mess.
Mm.
And then, of course, right, the little patch over by the beach. Okay, Flanagan's Pond, boy, that's a whole other
Yeah.
pickle.
I think part of what we have here is we need to be collecting the data, but in the meantime, we still need to be flying by the seat of our pants regarding, because the data is going to be historical.
Right.
It's not going to be anything you forecast with until you accumulate enough of it.
Yeah.
Then you can develop some type of trend information.
Right.
The other thing too is recognizing that we always have an 18 to 24 month window in regards to the budgeting process if we're doing it the way we're currently doing it. If we actually have an operating budget or an article that is if we find ourselves with an actual, I'll keep using the term operating budget. If we know we always have money annually for maintenance, understanding that we have the discretion as to whether we will need it / use it,
Right.
as opposed to figuring out we need it, then you have to go through the budget cycle, and then it's the next year, and you get weather
best.
considerations, etc. So then you're always in catch-up mode. So, my suggestion is, yes, we embark on some data and statistical adventure here, but it's going to take years of doing that. In the meantime, we still have to do something to maintain what we have. And, the recommendations that we see here were as needed. I just dropped my pen. It's clear that we are in an as-needed mode currently. As soon as we surrender a year or two, we're behind the 8 ball again, back to the dandelions, so.
One of the things, it's just a point I keep hitting, one of the things that we had talked about with Bob Hartzell back in 2013.
Oh my gosh. No, it was 2013.
Yeah.
Sweet Moses.
Was really trying to get definitive data on, for example, on specifically the use of fertilizers, because that's always been raised with Flanagan. I'm sure it's a factor with Sandy Pond at least. Not as much yet with Long Pond, but. And I still don't see in the report anything that specifically says, or at least I haven't recognized it in the report that we've got, that would specifically give us guidelines. Is fertilizer use a problem.
I didn't see it either, and interestingly, on this lakeaccess.org, they have a lawn fertilizer study, and they say Medicine Lake's water quality has degraded as a result of phosphorus loading. We've begun a community experiment to assess the potential to reduce phosphorus levels in residential runoff entering Medicine Lake by restricting the use of lawn fertilizer containing phosphorus. Use the links above to learn about the experiment in Medicine Lake watershed and how you can help protect your watershed health by making simple changes in your lawn care practices.
Yeah,
Is there,
I mean, like if.
There's
you-
links.
Yeah.
I mean, have they come up with this, I mean, do they know? Or is it just in progress right now
For,
for that study?
Well, this is. I wish they had dates on this
It's just like,
page.
how long would it take to, I mean, you stop using fertilizer, right?
Well, the point
But
being, you
5
could,
years down the road, 10
well-
years down the road until you know?
true, but
whether it's
the
helping?
point being, if we agree that as a practice, phosphorus-loaded fertilizers are a problem, then what is the thing that would preclude us from simply working to develop a bylaw that restricts the use of them,
right.
even if we don't have the trends or the sources? You know,
Yeah,
you know, we know your property is being fertilized. We don't know that. We'll never know that.
right.
But if we know, and in right now, even if people aren't doing it, or most people aren't doing it, it's one of those things where it's a preventative measure to have a water protection bylaw that says, you know, if you're within X feet of a waterway, you don't use
Yeah.
phosphorus loaded fertilizers. I mean, now that's not going to keep someone from going to Home Depot and buying some and dumping it in their little hand thing, but it is certainly going to change the practice of
Yeah,
of
for
the
education,
landscape companies
yeah,
and stuff like that.
landscaping, right.
So I mean, that'd be one that goes along with the education, where, you know, we put together some of the educational materials, put them online, downloadable, and have a bylaw that would, you know, you could even start out with an encouraging thing, and then, as you know, in a year later, actually have a bylaw as you set the expectation with people regarding an awareness.
Yeah,
But that'd be easier than trying, because if you did a study over X number of years, you still have the source of the problem still contributing it. This way, you cut off the source
right,
if it is a problem.
right. Yeah,
I'm not arguing that phosphorus in fertilizers are a problem in a general sense. I just don't know whether they are contributing locally to the problem, is all I'm saying.
well, I think based on Jess's question is, you know, what, you know, for each pond, what is the major contributing source of phosphorus? Is it fertilizer, is it road runoff?
And that's what I was,
Right.
I remember that, that was what we were
don't know.
trying, that Mr. Hart's,
Well, and so,
Hart's indicated they could give us that breakdown.
so let's step back from that, right? So number one, we have to keep coming back to the idea that he took a picture on a day.
Oh, yeah.
He's represented the town, he represented an entire pond with a photograph.
Right.
So that's problem number one. Problem number two, until they went and they did the research that they did on the different inlet paths into the ponds,
Yeah,
they couldn't have told you what the potential phosphorus loading problems were. So I feel like to some extent he's done that. The one place that they, I won't use the word failed, but it's not captured, is all the lawn area.
Yeah.
So they've got the road, the stormwater runoff. They did that. I believe they did a good job of
Yeah.
capturing the stormwater runoff, but I don't think they did a great job of capturing the lawn information.
Well, they do have the residential map that shows the resident, it shows
Yeah.
the
Area,
density of
the
residential.
density, right.
But, you know, so all you could do from that is infer that those are
Yeah.
potential threats.
Right, and you don't, but unfortunately it doesn't say this area is 1.3 square acres, and of that area you have this much lawn, so your potential for runoff is X.
Right.
Because it isn't just how much lawn there is, it's also how much, it's also what the pitch is. There's all sorts of things about what would make the difference between, you know, what that runoff would be. Which I can imagine, as we just even talk about it, right, is maybe part of the reason why we don't have a good picture on that.
Yeah. And it's borders too, the borders between lawns and the.
Oh, there's
and the
tons of
pond,
factors.
Right, there's so many factors.
Which is why it's viable to say, oh, that road, oh, okay, so we went to that road and we took a look at it, we know what the extent of the issue is here, do this here, and you'll solve a big part of your problem.
Right.
Fantastic.
Right.
Not so easy to do with people's lawns, not to mention, now you get into the aesthetic. You know, I would like you to cut a 3-foot trench along the entire pond, 2 feet deep, so that nothing runoff gets into it. And then everyone needs to go out and vacuum out their part of that ditch every day.
Or everybody build a rain garden in their backyards.
And I honestly think
It's
that,
kinda cool.
that has
I
a
like
lot,
that
I
idea.
think that has a lot of merit.
Yeah.
And I think that would have a lot of appeal to people. It's a low-maintenance backyard, and or a low-maintenance portion of your backyard.
As long as your view isn't sort of.
Well, you know what would be even more interesting to me would be to talk to people about even, and we didn't get into it, but it struck me, so if you do work over on like Nantucket, they hate yards on Nantucket. They don't want you to have a lawn. So the idea is they literally say, well, you know, here's a wild seed mix that you can plant
Yeah.
instead of having a yard.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, what if we started talking about that as a buffer that went along? So like before you got to the pond, what if there was a buffer and we even supplied the seed or whatever and said to people, if you cultivate this area using this seed instead of having it as grass, number one, it becomes a pretty place because it's the flowers and wildflower mix. Number two, it slows down some of that discharge that's coming down the hill.
Yep. Yep.
Thing is, it's worth noting, if you look at Flanagan Pond, just the topology around the pond, the shoreline, you have people at my end that are at sea level, and then you go Oak Ridge,
Yeah.
and they're 30, 40 feet above grade.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the types of runoff that you're gonna get, or just people dumping their leaves over the bankings and that sort of stuff, all of those things are part of the mix here.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
Substantial difference
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
the two sections.
you know, I have to haul everything out because I am right at the water.
Yeah.
You know, and if I had, and I enjoy my water view, but I can't have a compost pile for lawn refuse because there's no room for it, and it would be in the way. So I haul everything out. If you're on a high part of Oak Ridge, you know, you're so high above the water, and I don't know how many of those folks can actually make it down to the water without killing themselves.
Right, right. Not a tow rope.
You know, so my only point there is the whole issue of drainage and rain barrels and rain gardens, etc. The pros and cons are vastly different depending on where you are on the pond. And you mentioned the slope of your land. Well, my slope is like this, and someone else's like that. So
Right.
Well, if you just had a list of, management practices.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the Wildlife Federation. They give you a list of things you can do in your garden, and if you have like 3 out of the list, they'll send you a sign that says certified wildlife habitat.
Yeah.
Certified.
I
Right,
printed
one of those
off.
in the kids' room.
I went online and found rain gardens and edible gardens and all the stuff that's readily available on how to some get into the more sophisticated areas of actual bioretention and whatever, which is more the DPW's bailiwick with the stuff they're looking at. But as far as just being able to reduce the runoff from your roof, from your driveway, from your lawn, and who doesn't want something that's more, easier to take care of for their yard?
No, it doesn't get any better than this. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the end all be all. Is it's a real benefit to everybody if you are okay with the aesthetic. There's always going to be the person who looks out and says, "It just doesn't look like the 19th green. It's not what I wanted." Okay, that's fine. I just want to circle back because I think we're touching on all these wonderful points, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same focus, right? Do we agree that what we're attempting to do is to utilize this to help us make good decisions about what we need to do to treat the vegetation in the ponds and to keep the ponds healthy?
Mhm.
Does that anybody have anything to add to that? Is there something else we're trying to do besides that? Keep the ponds healthy, treat vegetation in the ponds.
And I would say.
Is that broad enough?
Maintain the ponds in a eutrophic, pre-eutrophic.
I'm gonna call that healthy. I refuse to use
You don't
these.
want scientific terms.
Prehistoric.
Keep them from turning into.
What they are. Back when they were tar pits. That's right. That's
Okay,
right.
healthy,
Right back
all
to that.
all right, healthy, usable,
Yeah.
recreationally, right.
There you go.
Recreationally
so,
viable.
No, so that's
Viable.
so beyond
Recreationally
healthy,
viable, right.
recreation. Right? So we have the health of our ponds that's important, recreation in our ponds, and also not just for the aesthetic, but also in regard to the above two, we have weed management.
And weed management, at the risk of sounding melodramatic, weed management also is a safety issue.
Oh, it absolutely is.
You know, you can get tangled up in those. If you fall out of your kayak in Flanagan Pond, no, I'm not being
Yeah.
facetious. You can get pretty tangled up in that stuff, and it could be problematic.
I'm just laughing because I just saw a horror movie.
And what happened to the guy? I'll bet he didn't get away.
It's like, was it Swamp Man or something? I don't know what it was, Swamp Man.
But like, to go to Takashi's point, you know, we can very specifically define what we consider healthy per
Sure.
pond.
And-
Sandy pond, swimming, boating, fishing. Flanagan pond, boating, fishing.
Maybe you
We-
break
Yeah.
this
And I guess-
Flanagan.
I've
would love to swim in
I've swum in
Flanagan's.
Flanagan's.
I would love to swim in Flanagan. I would like to do laps back and forth if I could.
Oh boy, it's a mile long.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Is
Yeah.
that long?
Huh?
Is that long?
Back-
Yeah. If you do that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's about a mile.
And Long Pond, I'd say, given they identified that one as like practically,
Pristine.
Yeah.
Pristine.
Yeah.
you know, what warning signs do we look for of it starting to change?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But how to keep it
Yeah.
at that level
Yeah.
of, you know, it's boating, fishing,
Right.
wildlife, diversity, you know. So Balch Pond, I'm not sure what our goals would be. Other
Well-
than not contributing further down the road. to-
Not making it worse is
Yeah.
probably as
Yeah.
not the happiest
And,
thing.
I mean, you know, it's my page 43, I don't know, it's table 2.16. And he kind of has these sort of laid out, not so much in the practical terms that we're talking about as far as keeping sandy pond swimmable or, you know, that kind of thing. But he does talk about, for at least for total phosphorus, what they estimate the current loading to be and what they recommend for either maintaining a healthy pond, which I believe in this case, Long Pond and Pine Meadow Pond, he seems to group in that category, or for sort of getting a pond to a point where it's below that sort of threshold where it's on its way to eutrophication. So Sandy Pond and Flanagan Pond, he seems to have in those categories. Balch, as you just mentioned, is kind of a strange case.
Yeah.
And then Grove is even stranger, and his recommendation is don't focus on that because you can't change it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Put up a fence.
you know, so he has these recommendations based on what admittedly is a single point in time snapshot of total phosphorus, but it's based on some methodology, scientific
Sure.
methodology.
And
So-
importantly, like you're pointing out, he's saying, if this is what you want,
Yeah.
you probably want to head in this
in
direction.
this direction. So he gives the numbers for recommended average total phosphorus as a goal, and then he translates that generically into what that would mean for the pond and for what you would plan to do.
Page 43, table 2.16. So I guess my only concern is, does this give us enough information? Is phosphorus the only thing that we should be focusing on?
No, and that's, I think, where we're all kind of getting at. These are all good in and of themselves, but I think synthesizing everything in a way that we're comfortable sort of, as you keep saying, going forward to the town meeting and saying, this is our plan, I think that's,
Look, you know what this always comes back to resource.
yeah.
Right? right? If we had a big bucket of money, we could spend it any way we wanted to.
And we could do everything that they tell us to do.
And they said, you know what, actually, it's about 3.7 billion. All you have to do, is buy out all the houses around Flanagan Pond,
Yeah.
tear them all down, and then start digging the pond out.
I'm open
Okay.
for that if the buyout's adequate.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah,
And
I mean-
so what we're talking about is the fact that we don't have unlimited resources, and so we do have to, in effect, compete with other uses in town, and therefore, we need to have a way to tell us how to go forward. I agree with Chuck, and please don't misunderstand me, Chuck. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to take this to a level that we can't achieve for 10 years. But, just like Napoleon, Napoleon said he wanted to have trees planted on the sides of all the highways so that as his soldiers marched, they would be in the shade. And someone said, but General, that'll take 30 years, 40 years for those trees to grow.
Then
He
you
said,
better
"Well,
plant them
then
now.
we better start tomorrow."
Yeah.
Right? So the only thing to do here is to get going on collecting the data so we can make those future discriminations, so we can use that information. And maybe we do have to fly a little bit by the seat of our pants in the beginning and say, well, shoot, we didn't do treatment last year, we better do it this year. Okay, that's true, but at the same time, how do I know after I take those readings, what does it mean? Am I headed in the right direction? Am I headed in the wrong direction? Is it completely out of whack with what they were thinking when they started? For all we know, on the day when they took those measurements, it was specifically a fantastic day for phosphorus. And they're all crazy under what they should have been.
Right.
And we don't see numbers anywhere like that for 3 years. And we're like, what are we doing
Yeah.
wrong? Right? Or we go and we test it and we're like, those guys were totally out of whack. Our numbers are way lower than this already. We don't have anything to do. This is fantastic. So I don't know. Other than standing there on the side of the pond and saying, this one looks good. That's the difference between what we're talking about. A complete subjective analysis of the ponds or an objective analysis of the data that we generate that says, this is the health that we're looking for in this pond and we're seeing the numbers.
So I mean, maybe make it just totally simple and just say, okay, here's our budget. This is what we want to do. We want to spend money on assessing, measuring, whatever, phosphorus, nitrogen, like spending the money on measurements every year. And we determine a number based on how many measurements we want to take. And then we say, okay, we want money to basically treat the ponds maybe every other year for the next 5 years. And then at 5 years, we'll have the numbers and we will be able to determine, where the status of the ponds are.
That certainly seems like a good way to go. I guess the one place where we've had trouble with that is in the past there wasn't money for it, so that was, I don't want to spend that money. So what we may want to do along those lines is go to the Board of Selectmen and say, this is what we think. I would feel more comfortable if we were able to say, look, we went and we had the study done, and here is how we're going to go forward, here's what we're going to measure, here's what we're going to tell how we're doing, and that's all great. And we'll have that data in 5 years. But between now and 5 years, we need to treat this year for sure. And we're estimating that we need to treat in 2 years. So, would you like us to come for the money now? Would you like to allocate the money today? Or would you like to wait, do money for this year and then wait 2 years for the next?
You'll never see it in 2 years is the problem.
Yeah.
Because the way the political winds blow, you're always going to be subject to whatever the crisis du jour is. And with that sensitivity, right now we have some momentum in that we have this study which is still fresh. There are going to be some people that are excited about what the study has to say, whether they are thrilled with the numbers that are in it or not. It's data that we can make decisions from. If we were to put together a plan like Bonnie's describing, where we actually articulate some metrics, some data collection, and as well as some treatment, and we could say, as an example, I'm going to make a number up. It's going to cost $100,000 over a 5-year period.
Sure.
Or $150,000 over a 5-year period, and we want that money in a lump to be, allocated through the Conservation Commission to be allocated, to be, subject to, RFPs, et cetera, and then you at least have that money so that you can actually do the plan. Because my experience, I'm an IT director for a municipality. I've done a 5-year strategic plan. Everybody bought off on the plan. They're all excited about it. I get the first year's money. Never saw the rest of it. Okay, so meanwhile, everyone remembers the 5-year plan and they're expecting the deliverables. That's what's going to stick in people's mind. You're not going to have any money to deliver. So my suggestion would be we articulate what we want. We find out, a reasonable anticipated budget for it, and we sell the plan as a whole and seek funding for it. That'd be my take on it. Again,
I think, so we're combining a couple different things here. We're combining both a pragmatic approach for how we're going to have to go forward, right? And we're also at the same time, I think we're trying to stick to, okay, but we also want to make sure that we're focused on doing it right. So I love the idea of going to the Board of Selectmen with a 5-year plan. I think we need to get more information out of what we have here. But we go to the Board of Selectmen with a 5-year plan, and we estimate, based upon what our treatments have cost, about $40,000 plus or minus. We're estimating that we're going to need 3 of those treatments. That's 120 grand, okay?
Plus our data collection efforts.
And that's the next piece. So what does our data collection cost? So I was actually just reading in here, how do you test phosphorus, right? And they talk about using a colorimetric method, which means the color of a treated sample reflects the concentration of the parameter. So if total phosphorus is being measured, all forms of phosphorus are converted to dissolved orthophosphate with acid persulfate and heat. A chemical is then added to the water sample. The darker the color of the sample, the more phosphorus present. Tests can be done visually, I don't like that at all, comparing the treated sample to a set of reference colors. However, it is more accurate with use of an electronic colorimeter, which sounds like a lot of fun, right? Which uses a light source and a photodetector to find the concentration based on how much light is absorbed by the sample. Am I wild in saying that sounds like something?
I could do that in the lab for pennies.
Yeah,
I could do that in the lab for pennies.
Is that anything that we can do using any of those pool kits? Do they measure phosphorus with those pool kits?
You know what we could do? Listen.
We're listening. We're listening.
Listen. We could buy a really cheap spectrophotometer. Like, there's so many places where you can buy this stuff.
Spectro what?
Spectrophotometer.
How do you spell that last?
Spectro. Spectropho.
PH.
PHO. Photometer. TOMETER. Meter. Spectrophotometer.
Okay, got it.
Spectrophotometer.
Spectrophotometer. For pennies.
For
Yeah,
pennies.
probably get one on the black
Pennies
market.
on the black market.
Or
Because
Amazon.
it's a
Or Amazon.
spectrophotometer.
And you can buy
The black
plastic.
market, see?
You can buy plastic cuvettes. I use in the lab all the time. And then you just buy, and there's a reagent that measures phosphorus content,
Yeah, it says
and you create a standard curve.
so all we need is acid, persulfate, and heat.
I have a different method
Oh, okay.
that's less expensive.
Is it the kind of thing that anyone could be taught to do?
Yeah. I can do it, you guys can do it.
So what it sounds like to me is the kind of thing that if we were able to keep it at the DPW headquarters,
Yep.
right? So it belongs to the town, keep it at the DPW headquarters, go in and do the testing,
Yeah.
maybe even work with Mark to talk him into having his people do the testing when they do their testing. How long,
That'd be
so does phosphorus degrade or change over time in a sample bottle?
You might, yeah.
Well, where's it go?
No, if it's in a glass vial or a plastic vial, is
Yeah.
it transparent?
No, it's just
No.
P,
Well-
it's just phosphorus.
But you can get
Yeah.
plastic bottles that are brown.
Yeah.
Well, but so hold on a sec, where's it gonna go though? Where's it gonna go
Well,
if
so,
it
so,
breaks
so they don't
down?
get the degraded from light,
Yeah.
so it's not, I mean.
And by the way, it was Joseph P. Schlitz who invented brown bottle packaging for the Schlitz Beer Company. I just read it on their website the other day. What about but
What are you
I'm
doing on the website?
Phosphorus is phosphorus.
I still like Schlitz. I guess what I'm saying is that so if I collect a sample, let's say that over a weekend, somebody collects samples on the weekend and they
Yep.
drop them off at the DPW and the DPW takes the data on
Yep.
Monday,
Yep.
I'm assuming that the phosphorus,
Oh,
where's it gonna go,
it's not going anywhere.
right?
It's
So
not
it's
going
still, even if it breaks down, it's not leaving the bottle, right? We're not into dark matter here.
No.
So, I mean, maybe we are, but the idea would be that if we could work out a sampling regime that, especially if it was simple and inexpensive,
Yeah.
even if we paid Mark, ooh,
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is playing off Bonnie's idea about having I'll call it a bulletized action plan here for, measurements, multiple year. Basically, if we were to put our heads together and put together just a bulletized action plan based on this, and said, okay, here's what we're thinking. We're thinking of taking these measurements at these locations, every week, every day, every month, whatever the heck we determine is the way to do it.
here's what it's gonna cost.
Yeah, and this is what we're thinking of, and this would help us build our trend line. It would be nice to check the temperature, whether there's been any precipitation recently, or whatever those other factors might be. And this is what we're looking at for the ponds, as far as weed management, every other year. So we would look at, I'll just make something up, year 1, 3, and 5 of this 5-year plan. And with the potential to do spot treatment as necessary. This is what we're thinking of as a plan, and just have it as a bulletized thing, and say, based upon this plan that you developed for us, Geosyntec, is this a reasonable action plan? What would you, would you embellish this to make
Yeah.
it more?
Do you have any suggestions of where we go from here?
Is this a reasonable approach based upon what you told us, and what would you add to it, or whatever?
So I hate to throw in the wrinkle, right? So the only question there is, at what point does somebody at Geosyntec say, well, that wasn't our scope of work, right?
I understand. My point is, they've already given us stuff, and I'm basically talking about regurgitating back, is this is what we think you said.
Right. We have summarized what we think you said.
Yeah.
We've also put in the factors, so it's nice to know that we're oligotropic or shooting for oligotropic, but getting there requires money.
Right.
And here's what we're going to tell people who have the money so that we could go get the money. Do you agree? Does this seem like a reasonable plan to you?
That's-
Would you at least give us your feedback on it, or
That's-
potentially would you tell us, holy smokes, you guys, what were you guys reading? No, we wouldn't do this, we would do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Anything. I think that's a great plan. I think it's I think, so from a practical standpoint, obviously, again, we're back to the resource, right? We have to get somebody to pay for all this stuff. So if the town is paying for this because it's a town resource, then we need to have a plan that we bring to the town. Seems to make the most sense to put the plan together and go to the Board of Selectmen and talk to the Board of Selectmen and say, this is what we're thinking, and quite frankly, we'd like you to be behind us on it. This is a solution that stops the herky-jerky, reaction of residents. It gives you the opportunity, Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator, to say that you are working with us to plan going forward so that we are addressing the ponds.
The other thing that we could do, and again, playing back to the summarized action plan that I just referred to, if we had Geosyntec look at it and say, yeah, that's a reasonable regurgitation of what we recommended, and it's actionable, and they give us their blessing on that. Again, I'm looking at nothing more complicated than having a one-pager outlining some of these points and sending it as an email. Is this a reasonable interpretation of where we should go from what you sent us?
Sure.
Okay, nothing that's going to require them to invest a great deal of time and analysis and billable hours.
Right.
So we take that one-page analysis, and then we find a way to put some numbers on it for dollars and cents. And then what I would suggest as a possibility to make this even more credible is you sit down with Mark, obviously, from the
Right.
DPW and Stormwater thing, and get his buy-off on it, and perhaps a memo saying he's in support of it. Do the same thing with Parks and Rec, they're in
Sure.
support of it. Conservation's in support of it. Fire chief is in support of it. And I'm basically talking about, we go there to the selectmen, not only with this study, with an action plan that is extracted from the study, with some budgetary figures that support it, and consensus amongst many departments in the town, and we have a lot more clout going in making the request.
Sure. I love it.
As opposed to being the tail wagging the dog.
I think, so, turning back, so what do we want to see in changes made for this report, right? So once we release this report to people, people are going to read it, and other than the fact that folks will make their own, they will discern what they will discern. Is there anything that's specifically missing from this report that they owed us? I still feel like the as needed needs a little bit more meat around it.
I agree.
Do we have other places that we want to go back to Geosyntec and say, think you're missing these valuable points for us?
One of the things, there's a section, one of the sections I was supposed to look at was a field watershed investigation. And I don't know if this is a germane point, but they have tables, like table 4.1 on page 110, that gives all sorts of figures, costs, since we're looking at figures for like the BMP improvements. And if you look at the numbers on this big graph, and then you look at the numbers on each BMP as it's described individually, they don't match up.
I noticed that too.
Do you notice that?
Yeah.
You're looking at this spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Table 4.1?
4.1, yeah. Because if you looked at, and I sort of did some sort of comparison, but if you looked at, say, the Peroni Park Grove Pond #1, they have a total cost range of $8,541 to $10,439. But if you look at their actual description on the specific thing, its price looks to me like it's more like $11,500 to $15,500. You know, so it's like if one of the things we need is figures we can that are grounded.
Yeah.
Well, what that sounds like is just simply they need to update their table 4.1.
Yeah.
And table 5.1 as well.
You know, not to be silly, but it could be as simple as, oh, what do you know?
Yeah.
They listed these all out, and these are the numbers from the ponds in Wichita, Kansas, where they did their last one.
Yeah.
Ponds
I think
in Wichita? Must be ponds in Wichita.
Sure.
We're from St. Louis. I mean, it's right next door.
Yeah.
Because I think that's good to get
It's not in
consensus with DPW as well, because the cost of all this, the bioretention cells and, you know, the stabilizers and the hydrodynamic separators. I mean, if DPW is planning to do some of this, then they will have a cost,
Right.
right?
Well, and that's the other part of it, right? So another reason to get involved with Mark. So according to this study, it's a great idea to do a hydrodynamic separator on Central Ave at Flanagan Pond, part number 11, anywhere from $7,000 to $8,500. Okay, so Mark, do you agree with that number? Actually, I can do it for less. We'll use our own people. Okay, great. So do you want to include that in our $150,000 number, or do you want that to come out of your regular budget? If I'm Mark, I jump at the chance of having it come out of our $150 number.
Right.
Yeah, I suspect, and I'm not speaking for Mark, but I suspect since he's a proactive guy, he probably has his watershed plan that he's developing on his own as part of his capital plan or enterprise fund or whatever funding mechanism.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating that'd be the reason. But we would need to know that so that we would exclude it from our numbers.
Right, exactly. And that's the other reason I totally agree with you. You know, one of the reasons that this was possible was we were using money from DPW funding because this was a benefit to him as well as us.
Right.
Well, here's the benefit. These are things, whether he knew them himself or would have guessed at them. Here's a report that carries out and says, hey, this is going to be a benefit to you. You should do these things. Okay, great. So there are 17 on this list. All right. Well, the last one is the no phosphorus fertilizer rebate program. The one above it is the rain garden demonstration program, so there are 15 items on this list.
Yep.
Okay, well, 15 items over 5 years is 3 items per year. These top out most of the time at about 10 grand. So if you set aside $15,000 a year to work on 3 of these projects every single year, you get them all done.
Yeah.
Just the way they are.
Right. But those are all the stormwater projects.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
They're separate and distinct from the stuff we've been talking about earlier.
Separate and distinct from the testing and the,
Right.
Yeah.
And-
however,
right.
they're clearly tied into that.
Understood.
I
Understood.
mean, these are done to reduce the phosphorus load.
Correct.
Right, into the ponds.
Yep.
Right? In fact, the only disappointing part is that we don't have 10 years of data to then do these and see what
And
happens.
see what happens, right.
What made the biggest change,
Right.
which, the, right, so the scientist part wants to do that, but the,
Yeah.
but the settled in part says, crap, I guess we'll just start where we can start.
The other thing I actually was wondering.
Candy Crush.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was until the other day, so.
Still the table?
Well, no,
Okay.
different. It was just a different question that I could see somebody asking this at a town meeting where we were discussing budgets or something. But if on page 2 they give the phosphorus budgets and modeling P load reduction per year that needed to reduce total phosphorus concentrations, and like, for example, Sandy Pond is 11.8, recommended reducing 11.8 pounds per year of phosphorus loading.
Right.
And
Well, if you make these changes, you'll
Yeah.
see a reduction of approximately 11.8.
Yeah.
right, but if you look at the BMPs they suggested, okay, like the Sandy Pond sites are number 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and 13. If you add up all the, I
And
mean, maybe
14.
I'm just reading it wrong, because I don't read numbers like this fast, but it just looks like what you get combining all of those sites is about 0.33 to 1.01 pounds per year, which is,
Total?
well, that's my
So
question.
pound per
Come on.
year. Pound per year.
So that's my thing down at the
Per
bottom.
year.
Um,
Yeah, you're right, it doesn't add up to more than,
So if I was looking at that and they're recommending, say, 11.8
Yeah.
pounds reduction per year, and we're spending many, many thousands of dollars to get up to 1 pound a year.
Well, is that per spot?
I added up each spot.
yeah, you're right, it doesn't add up to 11.8, that's for sure.
Where did they go?
And also, you gotta add in 14 as well, because they have that as Flanagan Pond, number 14, Sedgway Street.
Yeah, no, yeah.
They wanna put in a constructed wetland.
Yeah, I didn't actually include that one
You
in,
didn't
but
include it? Okay, but it's still like roughly 0.4.
where did those go? So was that a good point?
Yeah,
It's
it's a
a
good
great
point. Yeah, because it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like right way, site 7 on Sandy Pond, estimated phosphorus reduction 0.08 to 0.23 pounds per year.
Mm.
Am I adding, I could be adding things wrong, but,
Well, if you take the maximums and take the
Yeah.
minimums and then do an average, it's probably about as good as it gets.
yeah.
What was page 2 again?
Page 2 is the phosphorus.
Right, and is it saying that if you follow these methods, you'll get 11, or is it saying you should try to get 11?
Load,
Phosphorus load reduction in pounds per year. I think it was a target.
Needed to reduce.
yeah.
Phosphorus load reductions needed to reduce total pond concentration, total phosphorus concentration by 1, is that microgram or UG, microgram?
Microgram.
Which
That's-
is
is that
what
supposed to be
we
a
have.
mu?
So that's,
It's a micro, yeah.
yeah, so that's the same chart we have on page 43.
Yeah,
It's same thing, yeah.
okay. So unfortunately, I don't know that this graph on page 2 is saying what you thought it was saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That, but
Right.
I'm just saying,
No.
if I was somebody at town hall and
I know, they would definitely pick up on that.
it's just like if I was looking at
We're gonna be spending time explaining microgram.
right. So
But then if you go back to the tables with all the, a simple method calculation of phosphorus load, right? And they have, residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, whatever, transportational, agriculture. So if you add up all those, right, for each pond, they have a number, a total number for pounds per year. So I think your numbers that you're looking at, those are specific for probably just, I would think, well, actually.
I think they're
no.
specific just for those areas,
Yeah,
so,
just those areas, right?
yeah, it's a stormwater change,
Yeah.
and so this is what you should expect to see in reduction per year.
Right, right.
I mean, the changes are,
I mean,
Yeah.
it would be
Minor.
nice if
Yeah.
there was, a stormwater, like within this table, there was a
Yeah.
specific item
Yeah.
that number related to here.
and I'm not exactly
could
sure what I'm
cross-validate.
trying to verbalize, but
Yeah.
well, maybe, so look, so the first thing about all this is that none of us had ever written a pond study before. Chuck, how many pond studies had you written?
I've only done 3 so far.
Just 3 this
Yeah,
year, right?
yeah.
So Chuck's way ahead. Chuck's way ahead. But in general, none of us had written a pond study before. None of us had probably even read a pond study before. And so we're learning as we go, and a big part of doing what we're doing right now is to figure out what we were trying to get. And I don't know about you, I never feel badly saying, okay, well, this just made us ask a whole bunch more questions, like the Da Vinci Code. So what I would say is that we need to get a little bit more information from, I think we need to put together our questions for Geosyntec and send them off to Geosyntec. Then I think we need to follow along the path that Chuck was speaking to, which is to go to Geosyntec and say, this is what we're thinking. It gets us started. It's a 5-year plan to get started, and this is what we'd like to do. And oh, by the way, we came up with some ideas about how we're going to do the testing. Just please tell us if we're totally off the wall or whatever. Then, of course, we'll find out they own that lab, which is why they're recommending we go there. But if we can at least point ourselves in a direction to have something to bring to Board of Selectmen, because now, not only when we talk about resources are we talking about having to go ask for them, but we're talking about when we have to go ask for them. So, Springtown meeting is May something?
yeah.
3rd? Tuesday? 3rd?
Day after Mother's Day,
Again?
if that's any proof for you.
It really isn't.
It'd be great to have is a spreadsheet, like one spreadsheet that had cost and benefit. If you spend this much money, this is what your benefit will be. And just pure, just,
It's a nice theory, but
wouldn't it be nice
it's
to?
it's an organic problem.
I know, I know.
How can my Apple Calendar not tell me when Mother's Day is? Okay, so May.
Third Monday.
So let's say, so if we know we're going to, ooh, there it was. If we know we're going to need to meet with the Board of Selectmen before that, right? And May 2016. Thank you. May 8th.
Okay.
That's early.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's May 8th, does that mean, oh, now it comes out. Does that mean that the town meeting is May 9th?
Yeah.
Sweet bubbling Moses. All right.
Because that doesn't tell you much, because the warrant closes like in April.
Right. And it's not just
Well, I'm just
the
trying to work
warrant.
backwards.
It's not just the warrant closing. Obviously, we got to get it. We would also need to get in front of capital planning or finance committee or whomever.
Yeah.
So I'm not
That's
sure. This
February.
gets back to our conversation of a couple weeks ago, Bill, whether or not we look at our education process in the upcoming year and look at other sources of funding for weed treatment for this spring.
Right.
Because if we try to do all of the education and consensus building between now and the budgeting process, I think we're setting ourselves up to trip.
Plus, if we were gonna do weed treatments for this coming year.
It isn't gonna be out of this budget. I mean,
Right.
we wouldn't have a budget.
We don't have a budget,
Right.
but usually we have to start getting the RFP out by sometime in February,
Yeah.
which is pretty close.
Well, I think, as we learned in the past, it's one thing to issue an RFP and it's another thing to be able to award it.
Right.
So we probably, have to start with, where would the money come from?
Yeah.
All right.
I'd be glad to make some inquiries.
Well, I'm excited that you're going to. So let's do it this way. What's going to be the best way to do this? The pesky part is we need a full-time person who could just sit and do this, because it's going to take like 2 or 3 days to put all this
They are
stuff
creating
together.
that full-time position.
But was conservation mentioned in the job description?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Where'd that description go, by the way?
I handed it back to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, right there,
Mhm.
right in the top.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to see it?
Okay. So, in the list of things that need to happen, so if we take 2016, we say, what's the first thing that needs to happen? We know that we need to find funding for weed treatment in 2016, and Chuck is excited to look into that. We know that we need to go back to geosyntech with changes. We know that we need to go back to geosyntech with a general plan for review. We know that once we have those things in place, we have to make a stop at the Board of Selectmen, review our plan with them, talk about 5 years of whatever kind of instrument is best for funding for 5 years. Ask for 5, accept 1. In other words, ask for 5 years of funding, accept the fact that they may not be interested in sticking their necks out that far to allow for that.
Although I think one of our goals with this should be to create a line item on the annual budget, so that transcends individual boards of selectmen, so that the town gets used to, this is just one of the things we do every year.
I agree.
So,
If you looked at it, and that's the thing, if we looked at getting consensus in adopting the 5-year plan,
Mm-hmm.
and the mechanism for adopting the 5-year plan would be to incorporate X dollars into the operating budget, and it becomes part of the operating budget, then you're kind of forcing the implementation of the 5-year plan by putting the money in the budget, as opposed to coming and begging every year with capital requests. Then someone would actually have to deliberately say, we're taking the money out of the budget,
Right.
in which case it becomes a little bit controversial, and somebody's actually got to, actually has to actively propose dismantling the 5-year plan. That's what they'd be doing, as opposed to just doing it by omission. They would have to do it by commission, which is much more obvious to everybody.
Responsibility and all that. All right, I love it. So,
What
so
was the first bullet you had for geosyntech?
the first bullet was the changes. I
Okay,
had
all
the,
right.
the big one. That's the heavy hitter. All right. I know you had notes.
Mhm.
Did you email them about?
My notes?
Yeah.
From when? Oh, these?
Yeah.
This? No, I didn't. This?
Yep. All right. George, did you take any notes?
No.
Okay.
Bonnie
Mr.
did
Tyler.
hers.
Notes on those specific portions.
Yeah.
I have them written into my thing by
Okay.
hand. Nothing sent out, nothing typed up.
So I'm anticipating that the next 2 weeks are going to be horrific, and then after that it's going to quiet down for 2 weeks, and then it's going to get horrific again. So the
For you.
best
For you.
for me personally, and then by extension, all of you. So
Yeah, if it sucks for Bill, it sucks for everybody.
just coming around. So, because we're trying to finish up 2015, and then there's going to be a lull while everyone at my client's office takes 2 weeks off and does nothing. And then it will come back like gangbusters, which is the reason, as George and I always say, never take your holidays around Christmas. That's the best time to be in the office,
Mhm.
right? So I'm going to reload my jack drawer, and we're going to go to work every day just the way you're supposed to. So, if everyone could send me their notes, I can't do it next week, and I probably can't do it the week after, but the week after that, right around that Christmas time, I can put them together and send them to Geosyntec.
So, yeah, so in the next 2 weeks.
In the next 2 weeks, please generate your notes and email them to me with a big note right in it that says, my Geosyntec notes, so they don't get lost, along with all that stuff from Nubian princes. So let's plan on that. So that'll take care of the changes, and then at the same time, what we should probably do is come to them with our general plan, which, quite frankly, I'm not sure we're not done outlining right now. $120,000 for treatment, and somewhere in the realm of $30,000 a year, right? So if you say $30,000 a year for the BMPs, and the one place we don't know is what the testing will be.
Oh, I think you can put a number to that. You know, just use, analytical, get a quote from them.
Okay.
Get a quote, I can easily email them and get a quote.
If you were able to do that, that would be splendid. And then we'll meet with Mark.
I just want it known that I recruited her.
Thank you. And then we'll meet with Mark. Ask him. To me, the biggest thing is the continuity.
Yeah.
Having somebody at their office who can do those tests, whether we gather the samples or
Right.
even if Mark says it's okay for him to gather the samples. He's already got people out going to his guys go every morning down to the force main to the pump station down there. They go to the pump station on Oak Ridge.
Yep.
What would it be to gather 4 bottles, at that same time?
It just requires them to go to different places, right? Something that they're not sort of typically sort of accustomed to going.
Sure,
Right? They
sure.
have to get like a protocol sort of.
And believe me, I'm not saying this in any lighthearted way. I understand that costs money and it takes time in the whole business. But the beauty of having a town DPW is that they come to go to work in the town, whereas you go to work to go to somewhere else, and so do you, and so do you, and so do you. And obviously Jess likes her privacy and her enjoyment of her quiet time. However, the rest of us who all go off and run to work every day, we're headed in the wrong direction. So it's just harder to do that. They literally go right past the places where the samples would be taken.
Yeah,
That seems like a good fit.
yeah.
What do I know?
I drive by Walden Pond, I get a few samples on
You
the
could
way to work.
absolutely, except you'd have to pay to park first. That would be the piss road. You have to pay to park.
That would be the positive control. Walden Pond water.
Yeah.
This is our goal.
Actually, Walden is pretty clear. So
Yeah. What's another kettle too?
right,
Yeah,
Spring fed.
yeah.
What's that?
It's spring fed also,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
that would be another interesting thing to do, right? Graph the temperature. Anyway, so
It's cold at the bottom.
Cold, colder.
cold, colder, unbelievable.
Yeah, and they did, by the way, on page 111, give what they estimated to be a cost for
Yeah.
water quality sampling
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
And for weed
54.
treatment too, but I think they're.
Well, that was the other thing, though. They were talking about totally dedicated. Collect the
Right.
bottle, take it to the lab.
Yeah.
Right.
He said it to us repeatedly when he was in here. Oh yeah, you just take those bottles, take them right down to the lab.
Yeah.
I was like, "Eek."
Yeah,
And
You
then,
know, I mean, that's great if you're gonna take 2 samples a year, but
right, right.
then we're at the same place we're at right now. We don't, I hate to say this out loud, I don't know if that number means anything at all.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what that, I don't know if it's representative of the pond or if it's representative of a cool day in June. I don't know what it means.
Plus, I know they had a very minimalist treatment plan over 5 years for Sandy Pond, and as you saw by the Brenton showing up at our last
Mhm.
meeting,
Yep.
and my own observations, I think there'd be a lot of, I think that's great. The seat of the pants would require we grow that number.
And that's why we've gotta,
Yeah.
we've gotta start off.
Yeah.
I certainly, I was, my feeling was to work through what we came to do. And so what we came to do is to talk about the scope, right? So did they deliver what they said they were gonna deliver for 80-some thousand dollars? Let's start there. So we'll take that as part of the changes in the notes. Then what do we do with it? That's our general plan. And then our general, and I'm gonna call it a general 5-year plan.
And I would definitely be cautious with pricing. I would rather err on the side of exactly. Because if you lowball it, you get a 5-year plan, you know, we've boxed ourselves into a corner.
Well, very recently, and this would be an example to use in any discussion along those lines, the Green Line extension. Somebody sat down and said, yeah, it'll get cheaper as we go along. Isn't that swell? Stupid is that? You know, even the big dig guys added in a couple of percentage points for inflation every year. You know,
And see how
granted,
that
they
worked
were
out.
significantly below where they needed to be, but that's not the important point. They at least thought that things would get more expensive. Anyway.
And you know, if we're using the big dig as our benchmark, we can dredge the pond.
We could dredge. Just buy the town. Just buy the town, tear everything down. We all move to other towns around it and come to Ayer to enjoy the beauty of it. I mean, in a way, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, how big is Central Park? What did we do without smartphones?
We had meetings that lasted an hour.
Is that- I will take that in the spirit it's offering. So Ayer is 9 square miles, right? Ayer is just 9 square miles. Central Park area is 1.317 square miles.
Oh, so we're bigger than Central Park.
Bigger than Central Park. Put that in
9
the town
times
seal. Put that in the town seal.
We're 9 times bigger.
But you look at an area like that where people come to,
And we got
you
some
know,
big ponds.
specifically spend time and walk around.
Yeah. That's some
We
good
can
ponds.
say our ponds are bigger than Central Park.
There you go.
There
Yeah.
you go. Maybe there's a way to work this. All right. Did we have anything else? We were specifically excluding everything else from the agenda tonight, correct?
Right, there's nothing else on our agenda that we can officially talk about.
All right. Do you have anything further you'd like to discuss on this point?
No.
You, sir?
No.
You, sir?
No.
Adam?
No.
Sir?
No, and I appreciate you letting me sit in. I had a wonderful time.
There's nothing for you to appreciate. We appreciate you sitting. We appreciate your view, and especially because your old hat at the Board of Selectmen stuff. It's one of the places where we typically devise fantastic plans in here that fall flat when we're sitting on that side of the table, and there are others on this side. And it isn't so much from naivete. It's from we often come in with pragmatic and simple things that then are discounted because they're pragmatic and simple. And no, we've got to take a different approach this time, I think. So, all right.
Motion to adjourn?
Wow.
Oh.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Aye. Anyone want to say
Aye.
aye as well? There you go.